Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Have you ever had a hot arse? A growing worry that something warm is seeping through your trouser area. Well, that's the uncomfortable feeling I used to get when I was piloting my Honda CBR 600RR. That was 20 years ago, so it was unlikely I'd suffered some kind of continence problem back then. These days, I'm not so sure I could be that certain. That anxiety-inducing sensation was caused by the Underseat exhaust. Underseat exhausts were all the rage in the early 2000s, but surprisingly, incontinence fears were not the main reason they fell out of favour. So strap on your tenors and join me as we take a tense tour through 5 motorcycle innovations that bombed. Underseat exhausts. Let's face it, underseat exhausts do look neat. Born of racing, who wouldn't want to emulate the Doctor?
Sorry, half an hour ago I was a white-haired Scotsman.
No, not that Doctor. I'm talking about Valentino Rossi. That's how I felt when I was on board my CBR 600RR. Obviously, I was a lot less wiry than the number 46 jockey, but the bike was fast and eminently flickable. So desirable was it that 6 ne'er-do-wells spirited it away in a van one night. I know it was 6 because the dozy Dora across the road watched them do it, and subsequently told me all about it, but she hadn't thought to call the coppers. Apart from a hot bum, one of the disadvantages of an underseat or undertail exhaust is supposed to be weight high up on the bike. That's not something I was especially aware of. As far as I was concerned, the bike had a perfect centre of gravity, handled better than any I've ever owned, and was amazing fun, if a little uncomfortable for a chap of advancing years. I was a wizened old man in my early 40s at the time. So why has the underseat exhaust fallen out of favour? Mainly fashion, I guess. But apart from boiling your bum, another explanation that does resonate is the convoluted plumbing these pipes necessitate. Imagine having to get to one to change it, maybe for something a bit fancier, like an Akrapovic. Thankfully, the bastard bike bandits of Barnet saved me from ever finding out. Hub center steering. I'm tempted to write this one off as plain daft. I mean, who wants a motorcycle that looks like you're riding it in reverse? The theory goes that front forks have been around forever, and it's about time we jolly well came up with something better that doesn't dive under braking. Well, from what I've read, hub center steering eliminates that, but reduces steering lock, makes steering less precise, and is just too darn complicated. So, great if you're a straight line fanatic, but not so great if you're a fan of the twisties like me. I'm sure there are folk who'll defend it in the comments, but it's a meh from me, and I'm glad it's been chucked in the dustbin of history. Honda's oval pistons. You can't mention innovations that bombed without a nod to Honda's famous, or should that be infamous, oval pistons. The Honda NR, the NR stood for New Racing, although some wags preferred Never Ready, goes all the way back to the late 1970s. Because the racing rules back then stipulated a maximum of 4 combustion chambers, and Honda wanted to make a V8, they linked the 8 combustion chambers into 4 pairs, thus getting round the rules. That evolved into 4 oval cylinders with 32 valves and 8 spark plugs in total. Although the race bike wasn't exactly a success, by the early 1990s Honda had developed it into a 750cc road bike, complete with Undertail exhausts, and released it in a limited run of 300. Heavy and one of the most expensive bikes you could buy at the time, it pumped out 128 bhp, with a claimed top speed of 160 miles per hour. Now, as rare as hen's teeth encrusted with rocking horse shit, I did find this RC41 version for sale for £115,000. Turbochargers. Remember the first time you drove a turbocharged car, probably sometime around the early 1980s? Remember the joy of counting up to 3 before anything happened when you wellied the accelerator?
There really is quite a lot of turbo lag. There is a bit of a delay.
Then being G-forced into your seat back by the slingshot. Well, that was turbo lag in action. However, quite why that would be anything other than life-threatening on a motorcycle, unless you were Mystic Meg and could always see several seconds into the future, I'm not sure.
5 years ago, a team of Honda engineers set out to create the world's most advanced motorcycle. The result of their efforts is the Honda CX500 Turbo.
Still, such was the allure and cachet of sticking a turbo logo on your product back then, that a few manufacturers went for it, notably Honda again.
The only thing about it that is not surprising is the name of the company that built it.
The CX500 Turbo was the world's first production turbocharged bike, launched in 1982, and was swiftly followed by the CX650, which went some way towards eliminating turbo lag. The other 3 major Japanese makers duly followed suit. Kawasaki with its GPZ 750 Turbo, Suzuki with its XN85 700cc inline-4 turbo, and Yamaha with a 650 Turbo 4, the XJ650, the only turbo model to use carbs rather than fuel injection. They were all gone in a year or two due to the high cost of ownership, including the avaricious insurance companies loading premiums when they saw the turbo badge.
I'd like to offer you some car insurance, not because I particularly care about you or your car, but because this is one of those rare products where if you don't buy it, you're doing a crime.
Ah, insurance companies, eh? Don't you love them?
If you do get into an accident, we at Horton Insurance Heroes promise to maybe pay you some of that money back, depending on what happened.
It wasn't quite the end of the road for boosted bikes. Kawasaki launched the superb Ninja H2 with a supercharger on board in 2015. Now, if I could get my hands on one of those. Inboard disc brakes. Lastly, a bit of a curveball. I'm willing to bet that very few of you will remember inboard disc brakes, possibly better described as enclosed disc brakes. Disc brakes first appeared on production motorcycles in the 1960s, on Lambretta scooters in fact, and they were, in effect, fully enclosed. But in yet another early 1980s fit of innovation, and yet another one to chalk up to Honda, they appeared on 2 of Honda's bikes, the VF400 and the CBX 550F. The ventilated housings were meant to help with wet weather braking, and allowed the use of cast iron discs, which form a not very aesthetically pleasing rust layer, which was nattily hidden from view. The innovation only lasted a year or so when Honda reverted to more traditional discs, and both bikes now reside in the Where Are They Now file. And there you have it, 5 motorcycle innovations that bombed. Of course, this isn't a definitive list, so do feel free to chime in the comments with any further suggestions for motorcycle innovations that bombed. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and sharing to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Fills. Thank you.